I'm Craig, and today for the Surfboard Guide, we're going to check out the Plasmic by Album Surfboards. So this is the Plasmic by Album. People are probably pretty familiar with the brand. We've checked out a few of their boards over the last few years. Twinsman, everyone loves, really popular. The Dissim, I can never say it, and we checked out another ASIM. The name totally eludes me right now, but always been fun boards, been a huge fan, and the Plasmic is no different. So looking over the Plasmic, what I've been riding is a 5.5, and I wasn't quite sure about the dimensions. I said we'd put our video last week looking at all our reviews we're doing over the next couple of months, and I said that mine was more stretched out, like the one that the Ho, Coco and Mason Ho had in the stab thing. It's not really. It's very similar to the stock dim. So I think the stock dims are 5.5, 23/8, 2 and 7/16, where this is just a little bit wider, a little bit thicker, because I'm a little bit wider and a little bit thicker, and it's 5.5, 20.5, 2.5, and I'm gonna guess, because I don't know the volume, it sits between the 5.5 and I think the 5.6 or 5.7. I'm gonna say it's about 34 litres. I'm 5'10.5", around 92 kilos, and I normally ride around 31, 32 litres in a short board that are around 5'11", 6'0". So just to give you a bit of idea around my size and sizing, and this has felt absolutely spot on. Looking over it, it kind of, if you look at the front, I'm gonna say 2/3, kind of a pretty traditional fish kind of outline. And then when it gets pretty interesting, it has a pretty significant beak. I hope you can see that. And then it follows pretty much that beak drop, almost follows the board around, because what it has is a flat, I don't think it's concave, I think it's a flat deck, and then it just drops away to a lower rail. So that 2.5, what that does, normally you'd have it fade from the stringer to the rail to be a nice gentle drop, but this holds the width, the thickness, to the last kind of like 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches, and then it drops away. It's not a low rail. Some people do that and create this really low kind of bitey rail, but this still is like a pretty generous rail, and it still feels quite thick, but just not 2.5 on the rail, because it would be too thick and it'd be quite hard to move it through the water. Again, looking at it, pretty flat, a little bit of lift through the nose, and then a bit of lift shape through the bottom of the front end then. So it's really flat, but it doesn't seem to find itself in trouble. A lot of boards that are really flat seem to find themselves in a little bit of trouble, nosedive, too flat, all that sort of stuff. Just seems to work. Matt's really kind of nailed it in the design of the Plasmic, and it works really, really well. What's kind of cool, like I said, the front 2/3 is more of like a fish type design, and it does hold its width, but then you'll notice it really, imagine a fish with a traditional kind of fish outline just going straight through here to a swallow, really straight and wide. It almost has, actually, it pretty much does have, there's like a hip. I don't know if you can see that. It really kind of pulls in quite aggressively. So it's quite wide, the fins right there. It's quite wide just till in front of the fins. And then it pulls into a nice little kind of almost like a hip to a narrower tail. And then instead of your normal fish that would have a big swallow, it has this what they call a diamond tail. So it allows you to use the full rail line in the edge and be quite maneuverable off the back end. Apologies for those kookaburras. Living in Australia, it can get pretty native and pretty noisy, especially when I'm trying to film these things. So hopefully enjoying the ambience of the bushland that I live in. What's also pretty cool about the Plasmic is when you flip it over, I hope you can see down through the bottom there, it has a huge double barrel concave. So it starts up about, I think it's flat. I don't even know if there's a single there. I can't really feel too much, but you can feel the stringer start to extrude a little bit around here. So probably under your chest and your front foot. And then that double barrel starts to, you can probably see the Album decal. That double barrel starts to shape in just in front of it. Then it comes through, and I'm gonna say through the bottom there, it's pretty deep. So I'm hoping you guys can see that on camera, pretty deep. What that does is, and what I found, because I think I made claims that this is the best small wave twin fin I've ever ridden, I feel like it just jets water through. Singles to doubles and even singles are always really fast and really easy to surf, but this is on another level where it just seems to excel across flat water, weak water, has lots of speed, has lots of pace, and this is why I think it's probably the best small wave twin fin that I've ever ridden. So I've had this Plasmic for quite some time now, probably the best part of like 9 to 10 months. Was surfing quite a bit when I got it, was going to do the review, had a bit of time out of surfing, not surfing a whole lot. When I first got it, I was able to surf in some pretty good waves, and like I said, it surprised me how flat it was, but how it didn't seem to get itself in trouble in suckier and steeper waves. I surfed it in some bigger, better barreling waves. Thing was absolutely epic. What I really enjoyed was this condensed foam under your chest. So even though it's 34 litres, it's a bit more than I normally ride, it almost felt like a kind of a step up, because I remember one surf I had where it was kind of suckier and slabby. I could get into waves like kind of under them, into the barrel really early, and it had this paddle power that all sat under your chest. So everywhere the foam was exactly where you wanted it to be, and it made paddling really easy, and then it made surfing really, really easy. Since then, like I said, I kind of had some injuries. I've been surfing a lot of like mid-lengths, high volume things that are really easy to surf. But then coming back to this when I want a bit more of a performance feel. Definitely not really venturing on any short boards or anything like that just yet. But this has had, I guess, kind of the best of the two worlds. It's got a bit more volume than I normally ride, but it feels like more, I don't want to say, it doesn't feel like it's big or boaty. The volume is just in the right places. So, 34 litres, a little bit more than I normally ride. Doesn't feel big or oversized or boaty, just feels like it's really efficient. It paddles like a board that probably has more foam. I'd say it will paddle as well as some of the other boards that I'm riding that are like 36, 37 litres. But when you're up on a wave, on your feet, you're turning and you're surfing, it doesn't feel like those bigger boards. Those 37, 38 litre boards are lots of fun, but they do feel bigger, they feel boaty, and they feel, a different kind of level of control. This has the best of both worlds. It has that paddle power you want, that volume and that efficiency to get into waves. But when you're surfing, doesn't feel big, doesn't feel like oversized, feels absolutely epic, and I've really, really enjoyed it. We've had summer in Australia, so we get some pretty average waves, and you'll see the clips. What I wanted to show in some of the clips was just how well it surfs in small waves. I'm a pretty big guy, 92 kilos, not that tall. It's not a huge amount of foam, and I hope the clips show some pretty shitty waves that we get in Sydney and surrounds in summer, and they're pretty small and weak, not a lot of push, and the board just kind of keeps going. I can connect sections on a few rip bowls, get around sections that would otherwise run away from me, and still do a few little jams and turns in the pocket. Coming back from a bit of injury, I'm still taking it really, really easy, but this was a whole lot of fun to surf. Even just kind of trimming a few Rios, some really slow cutbacks felt really good, and I really, really enjoyed surfing the Plasmic in waves from kind of 3 to 4 foot that were pretty good, through to like 1 foot sloppy onshore rip bowls in summer. The Plasmic seemed to be able to do it all. In the Plasmic, we're lucky enough to get connected with Naked Viking Surf. So you might have heard of NVS fins. They're in the US. They make some really kind of bespoke and amazing fins. And this is their Album, I think it's the upright twin, I'm not sure what it's actually called, but this is the Album twin fin. So this is what, I got this pretty much about the same time as the board, surfed it pretty much the whole time. I was lucky enough, they also sent me a set, so this is Futures, obviously, single tab base, and they also do it for FCS. So they use the 2 tab rather than the FCS2 system, and that's NVS, it's part of their Apex series. I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like they might be like a G10, like a carbon fin. They are like really stiff, and they're pretty dense. I wouldn't want to cop one of them. But yeah, they're the fins I've been riding in this board pretty much the whole time. I whacked in some T1s, and also I checked out the new T2s by Futures. They all felt really, really good, but I just felt like Album fin, Album board, this thing felt absolutely perfect. I think there's quite a lot of, the fin is quite raked out. It's quite thin, and it's upright, and it just seemed to work really well on this board. Like, at no time did I feel like it ever needed a stabilizer. Did I need a bigger fin? It just felt absolutely perfect. So it was cool to check out, other fins, because I have quite a selection of fins to check out, and not everyone has access to get, Naked Viking Surf, or sometimes some of the other fins I check out. But these were absolutely perfect. So if you can get your hands on a set of the NVS Album upright twins, I'd recommend you do so. We've had this board up on Instagram for a while. People have DM'd me, commented on things. A few people saying they're using like the Shapers, the Asher Paceys and all that sort of stuff. I think people now seem to think Album, they think Asher Pacey, so people are grabbing those fins. Didn't check them out myself, but lots of people who follow our Instagram at the Surfboard Guide have said that the Asher Paceys are a really good fin, the Plasmic, and they've enjoyed surfing on it. So my first recommendation would be the Naked Viking Surf Album upright twins. They were absolutely amazing. A few different things I checked out from Futures were really good, and then a lot of people saying the Asher Paceys by Shapers Finco, Shapers Manufacturing Co. were really good. So any of those should work if you get your hands on a Plasmic. Overall, the Plasmic has been absolutely epic. I've been a huge fan of Album Surfboards. Quite some time ago, I was in San Francisco. Hadn't really heard of Album Surf. This might have been like 2016. Maybe seen them on Instagram and a few other things, but they definitely weren't available in Australia. And you know, there was no Asher Pacey, there was no Josh Kerr, there was no one riding their boards. And I was in Proof Lab, which is a shop in, I think it's Mill Valley, or just the other side of Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. I had a look in there and saw this, I think it was called the Fascination. It's like an ASIM sort of fish. Saw it on the wall. You know, I hadn't really bought boards off racks, especially in US dollars, which is pretty tough when you're Australian, but I had to have it. The thing looked amazing, and I was frothing that I did. I'll put a link to that review in this, but we checked that out many years ago. Since then, we checked out the Disasim, which is another kind of more performance shortboard-esque kind of ASIM they do, with a twin under the toe, quad under the heel. And then we're lucky enough about 2 years ago to check out the Twinsman, which has been everyone's favorite. And then now I've got the Plasmic. Been a huge fan of you know, Matt and his boards. Was able to catch up with him a few years ago when he came out to Australia to launch Album in Australia. Awesome guy, and just really like, I think, the aesthetic of the brand, his designs. He makes stuff that I think is, you know, really pleasing visually to the eye, but also really works well for like the average surfer. It's been really cool over the last few years seeing surfers like, you know, Josh Kerr and Asher Pacey surfing at such a high level on these boards that actually aren't so high performance and out of the realms of, you know, probably you and I, average everyday surfers. Those boards that Josh is riding and he's surfing, you know, 10-foot Mentawais, or he's doing airs out Karamis, or just, you know, absolutely ripping, they work for you too. You might not be surfing at that kind of A grade level like he is, but they work. They're not too dissimilar to, you know, the boards that you'd get off the rack or if you ordered something from Album. Whereas if you look more in the shortboard realm, the stuff that, you know, Kelly's riding and all those sort of guys, they generally don't work for everyone. They work for, like, you know, the top 10%, and everyone else kind of struggles on them. So I think that's really cool about Album Surfboards, is the boards that people are surfing at like the highest level are also the ones that you and I would get off the rack and we could order custom. Look, overall, I've absolutely loved the Plasmic. Thing's been heaps of fun, really easy to surf. I surfed it early on, like I said, got some really good waves, had a lot of fun in some better and bigger waves. And then since coming back from injury, when I wanted more of a performance feel to move away from the 7-foot, 46 litre things I've been riding just to start cruising and stuff again, it's been absolutely epic, because it can cruise. You can sit up on that volume up the front, but you can also jump back on the tail, do a Rio, snaps, has lots of hold, lots of bite, great release, really, really easy to surf. I'd like to thank, you know, Matt and Nathan at Album Australia and everyone for the chance to check out the Plasmic, and I hope you get a chance to check one out too. Thanks so much for watching.